if you're a person who respects what we're doing here, this woman should never, ever, ever be looked at with respect again. I'm going to pull a whole Kendrick Lamar and I'm going to put in I might even name it the Megyn Kelly category. They not like us. I don't rock with you.
He's awesome. He's a Christian black conservative. I watch quite a few different Christian conservative YouTube channels, and at least the conservative blacks are not happy either. And that's my big concern because Donald Trump, for the first time since probably the 1960s, has gained a large percentage of at least the male conservative blacks. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, he's picked up also a lot of women. He's actually picked up a lot of people who are registered Democrats. He's picked up actually a not inconsequential number of conservative Jews. He's picked up a ton of people in different truckload of Hispanic voters, actually. He has this incredibly diverse and supportive coalition. And what you see with this behavior, the stuff that people like Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson and so on are uplifting, is a kind of identity politics that makes them, at the minimum, feel uneasy or unwelcome. And it's not necessarily, okay, so Tucker elevated the Nick Fuentes, and Nick Fuentes has some white supremacist views, so therefore, it's not that these conservative black guys are going to be like, oh, well, I'm out over that. What they're going to be demoralized by is watching Megyn Kelly defend this, and then watching the vice president, defend this, and watching the Heritage Institute defend this, and then watching, tons of other people just kind of truck along in line behind and defend all of this, support all of this, and say, we need unity more than we need moral principle and clarity. And that's where you start to look at this and say, okay, if it was Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes or Megyn Kelly or a couple of people, like, fine, you get some, maybe Fuentes is a bad apple and you get some bad apples, and we put a box around the bad apple so it doesn't rot the rest of the bunch. But it looks like the bunch is actually very interested in the rotten apple. And you start thinking, holy crap, maybe the whole party is like this. And then what you see is, there are like congressmen and whatever who are against this. They know it's bad for their elections. They know it goes against their principles, and they don't say a damn thing. They don't say a word.
Why do you think they don't say a word?
The exact same reason almost that the Democrats don't, that we already talked about. They're not captured necessarily by big money donors, or most of them aren't. They're captured by audience. They're looking at, like, oh my gosh, what are the trends on social media? Where are the numbers going? How's it going? And what they're mostly appealing to, from what I hear on the Hill, most of the staffers, I think the average age of a congressional staffer right now is under 25 years old. It's the youngest class of staffers they've ever had. And so these people are young. They're kind of radical in many cases. They're very online people. And so, they're looking and they're like, well, this stuff's blowing up and that stuff's not. And so they're scared that they're going to get primaried by a more radical campaign. Like, you can look in Florida, where you have this con artist and idiot, James Fishbeck, that's claimed he's running for governor. He's got like 2% of the vote or something like this. And then you got Byron Donalds, who's obviously polling quite well in the Republican Party. But online, if you look at their numbers, Byron's always getting attacked. Byron's numbers are kind of normal numbers. And then, whatever reason, this Fishbeck guy has crazy high numbers. He posts something very radical, very objectionable, and his numbers are really big. So because of this kind of, Dan Bongino just called it, digital astroturfing. That's a good term for it.
Yeah.
Now, because there's this digital astroturfing phenomenon, because you have the bot farms and you have the coordinated server groups and you have the chat groups and you have whatever else that are making sure to create algorithmic velocity for these characters and to stack the deck, the numbers are all kinds of out of alignment with reality. But when you have a group of staffers informing a group of congressmen that this is where the winds are blowing and they don't want to lose elections, they all of a sudden are like the same attitude that we see, whether it's from Heritage Foundation or whether we hear from Megyn Kelly with her very politic statement that she made about Fuentes to Tucker, which is that, well, maybe we don't agree with these guys, but we don't want to lose them. We don't want to alienate them. We don't want them to fall off. It's too much energy, too much activity. The Heritage Foundation has this idea like the new right is here. Trump spoke to them. They're awake. We have to kind of incorporate some of that. It's just where the conservative wind has blown. So we have to incorporate some of it. And again, it's, this political expediency and being more important than principles and values. And that is the thing that's demoralizing, that's going to cause your voting coalition to start to fragment. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard from. I mean, it's got to be in the hundreds. I don't talk to enough people to get it to the thousands, but I bet you it's an inordinate number of people who are there.
Based on what I watch on YouTube, it's a large
It's a lot.
Group of people that are really concerned right now.
Yeah, and let's be real. First of all, turnout's going to be worse in the midterms, especially on the conservative side of the aisle. It's going to be worse in the midterms than it was in 24. So you're already going to see a decrease in the proportion of conservative voters. You can say whatever you want about the electoral college. It's not relevant in the midterms. President Trump won by 3 million votes, right? So 3 million out of about 70 million that total voted for him. If you shave off that many, you're talking about an electoral bloodbath. If you get 3 million conservatives who say, I'm staying home or I'm voting for Democrats for the first time in 10 years, you have a major problem on your hands. And
I think this is time for me to jump in on the purple voters, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, I have a video in regards to purple voters. So hold on.
I don't know, guys. I'm sorry that I'm going against the grain today. I have concerns for the Republican Party, and it involves not condemning extremism from the fringe that's going to lose moderates. And you could sit there from the right and say, we don't care, you're new to the party, but everybody knows you need swing states for a reason. So just if you don't even care about the evil shit that the fringe on both sides are saying or doing, one would think you would care about being successful in the elections. And you're not going to be if you can't say something as simple as misogyny is wrong, racism is wrong, anti-Semitism is wrong, sexual violence is wrong. That's alarming. I think I am watching it be weaponized by the left very effectively, and we have no counter argument.
Yeah.
And she nails it. Julian Michael nails it.
Yeah, I've been saying that for a very long time. And if you go talk to normal people who don't spend all their time in right-wing bubbles online, kind of a right-wing, almost like political cult online, if you talk to people outside of that, they're like, what is this crap? I'm not voting anymore. Or I've heard this exact sentence so many times it shocks me. Something to the effect of, I swore that I would never vote for a Democrat again in my life after what they did to us in 2020, with everything that happened with all of that. And you know what? I'm looking at Democrats now. Here it is, just 5 years later, 6 years later, and I'm looking at the party I swore on my life I would never look at again, because they're so frustrated. And she said it exactly right. It isn't the fact that it's happening that's scaring people off. It's the fact that there's no clear condemnation being done. That, for the party that screamed to build that wall behind President Trump in 2016, talking about keeping illegal immigrants out of the country, they're not willing to build even a fence to keep some really toxic ideas out of our set of visibly core principles. And all of a sudden, for political expediency, and because it's the wind and the energy that where things are moving, and whatever other agendas are going on, now we can't criticize, like she said, misogyny, promoting sexual violence. I mean, for goodness sakes. And racism, sexism, anti-Semitism. You can't put up some fences around this stuff. And it's the lack of being willing to put up that fence that causes people to lose faith in you. And I'm just hearing, you talk about the purple voters, these moderate voters. For every one of my guess would be, very honestly, for every one of these little radical right edgelords that you keep as though they're not already going to vote Republican probably anyway, if they were going to vote, for everyone you're able to keep from going to the Democrats, you're going to lose 100 normal, what you call purple voters or swing voters. They're just going to flee in droves. And like I said, Trump won by 3 million votes in a little more than 3 million votes in 2024. That's just a few percentage. You shave off a few percent, 5%, just 5% of the people who voted for President
A
Trump in
lot of
2024.
presidential elections went by like less than 1%.
That's right. You're talking about very narrow margins being able to make very big differences in the makeup of the bodies of Congress. And so this is so blatantly foolish. There's, kind of competing hypotheses for why this is happening. One is that, the right finally got power and they decided they were going to try to ram everything through that they could possibly think of, and they just got out of control and lost their minds a little bit. One's audience capture. I can't even go to either of those hypotheses. My hypothesis is that this has to be a deliberate move led by at least a handful of people who are in on the know, who are trying to cause the Republicans to lose the midterm elections from within the Republican camp. I mean, actually
And
paid
why?
saboteurs.